Hello, hello, hello. Great day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Representation matters. It really is important to see people that look like you represented throughout all levels of the organization. And beyond the numbers and getting a seat at the table is making sure that your voice is heard and that you are being valued for your unique contribution. You see, you can have a seat at the table and still not feel like you belong there. So, this can certainly be an issue in terms of mental and emotional well being. But there's also a very clear business imperative that supports the importance of diverse and inclusive organizations. Today on the Coffee with Rhonda show, I have invited inclusive culture expert Simi Rayat to join us for the discussion. So, are you ready to lead above the grind? I know I'm ready. Let's get started. Hello, hello, hello. Great day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Coffee with Rhonda show, your cup full of inspiration, revelation, and wit for today's savvy leader. I can hardly believe it, but this is season 8 and we are on episode 99. Next week is episode 100. Really excited about that. So, thank you all for joining us. Before we get started, one thing I'd love for you to do is if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can do that at coffeewithrhondashow.com. Also, right now, I can promise you there is something in this episode that someone else will want to see, hear, and participate in. So, like the video, share it with your network so that you are sharing all of the brilliance that Simi is about to share with us. So, with all that being said, my name is Rhonda Y. Williams, and I'm your host for the show. I am what I like to call an RSO, or a recovering stressed out leader. So, today I am an advocate for leaders to take care of themselves as they take care of their organization on the journey to creating modern magnetic cultures. So that's a little bit about me and who I am. If you want to learn more about the work I do in the world, you can visit us at atgleadership.com. Today, in my cup, first of all, I'm using my cup from Colombia, and that's Colombia with an O and not a U, right? So, using my cup from Colombia, and I have coffee and a little dash of cocoa with some coconut creamer in it. It was actually pretty delicious. So that's me. That's what's in my cup and what's going on. I want to take a moment to introduce our special guest for the show today. And before I get her to just give us a little bit of an introduction and to tell us what she has in her cup. So, Miss Simi Rayat, I want to this is my good friend we met some time ago. Gosh, I guess it's been a couple of years now.
It
And
has. Yeah.
it has. And Simi is the founder and principal psychologist of Wellbeing Face, a thriving psychology coaching and consulting practice. With 20 years of business psychology consulting, Simi is a sought after executive leadership coach and psychologist, working with leaders and founders to elevate and transform leadership brilliance. She's helped hundreds of professionals accelerate their growth through her evidence based, practical, and novel way to practice mindset mastery. Simi, it's been a while since you've been here. Welcome back to the coffee table. Tell us a little bit about the work you do in the world, and then tell us what's in your cup.
Thank you, Rhonda, for having me. It's amazing to be back and to be here with you today. I'm always super excited for our conversations and our time together. So in my cup today, I have some very interesting boiled plain water with a slice of fresh ginger. That's as exciting as it gets for me in my love-filled cup. And I I'm working. I work as an inclusive culture expert, working with a lot of organisations here now based in Australia, as well as the UK, helping senior leadership teams really develop their inclusive leader mindset. So that once they've got the mindset right, they can absolutely know how then to lead and role model inclusion within their organisation. So it's a lot of fun, exciting work, and I'm very privileged to work with some amazing leaders.
Awesome. Thank you, Simi. And tell us where you're based.
Yeah, now I am based in Australia, Melbourne, on the East Coast. And I moved here, me and my family moved here just over a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
Prior to that, we were based in the UK, in London.
All right, awesome. It's great to have you here, Simi. So we've got a couple of folks out there. So Mom is out there. She said these shows just keep getting better and better. I'm here today with frozen spearmint peppermint herbal tea with lemon. Wow, Mom, that sounds amazing. Wow, I'll have to try that. Right?
Yeah, me too.
Nathan. Hey, Nate. Great to see you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Congrats on almost 100th episode. Thank you. I'm very excited about that. I had no intention, Nate, just so you know, I had no intention of being here for 100 episodes. And here I am. And it's still amazing. So thank you for that. Uh, Mindy, hi Mindy, it's great to see you. Good morning. Looking forward to the conversation this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Mindy. Feel free to make sure that you're chiming in and helping to power our discussion. And you as well, Pat, who's tuning in from Johannesburg, South Africa. Love it. Thank you so much all for tuning in. I want to get right into our conversation. And when I think about inclusive cultures, um, it's not as easy or as simple as it sounds. So I want to get us started with a quote that I want to get you to react a bit to. For those of you listening later on audio, it says inclusivity means not just that we're allowed to be here, but that we are valued. I've always said smart teams will do amazing things, but truly diverse teams will do impossible things. And this is a quote by Claudia Bryan Woody. So, talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on this, Simi, and also what your definition of inclusion is as you're working with organizations. How do you help them define inclusion?
Yeah, it's a great question to start with, Rhonda, because I think, we need to get clear on how we define inclusion, because it can mean different things to different people. And I do like that quote that you shared because it very much resonates with the quote that we use at Wellbeing Phase, which is all about helping each and every team member feel seen, heard, and valued.
Mm.
And that goes more than just having a seat at the table. You can have a seat at the table, but if no one is talking, if no one is inviting you to share and express your views and opinions, and you don't feel safe to do that, that's not an inclusive culture. So for us, inclusion really is about the glue, the connectivity, and it's the action. And that's really important, the intentional and deliberate action of helping people to feel seen, heard, and valued.
So I really love that, Simi. You're defining inclusion as action, and by doing that, it really gives you a different lens, right? It gives you a different. Here comes Miss Roz. Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So, as you define inclusion as action, that means that there has to be a clear intention on where you're going. So I'll touch on that just a little bit more. I want to say good morning first to my dear friend and business partner, Christopher. Hey, Christopher, big love and inclusivity from Arizona. Hey, Christopher. And then Pat said, great topic. Thank you. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that because I feel like, Simi, we are still making the case for inclusion, right? We are still making the case for why we should be moving more towards inclusive cultures, right? Beyond diversity, as we mentioned, diversity are the numbers. I still think we've got truly a long way to go in terms of diversity because we often have the numbers at the lower levels, but at the higher levels of leadership and the executive levels, we often don't have the numbers. So that's a different conversation. But in terms of inclusiveness, let's talk about the business case for it because I feel like we still have to make it, even though we know there is one.
Yeah, great question. Look, I think the thing to really start off here is that we need to start with diversity. We need to start with bringing in people from different backgrounds, different ages, different views and ways of thinking. Because that difference, that diversity in thought is so, so important. But without the inclusion, without fostering a culture where people feel that they can express their views, share their ideas, bring their whole selves to work, we're not getting any benefit from any of that diversity.
Mm-hmm.
So, in essence, diversity and inclusion go hand in hand. Because if you have no diversity and a really inclusive workplace, then you're just going to get the same of the same.
Right.
Everyone's going to feel all, clicky and, oh, we get on so well and we're not going to rock the boat. But we're not getting the value of the diversity of thought. So we need to have the diversity, but to really take advantage of that diversity, we absolutely need to foster culture and behaviours of inclusion. And we have a model and a framework that we work with leaders on, and that inclusion model essentially looks at three areas. It looks at decision making. How are decisions made in the organization? So, from an inclusive lens, when you're attracting and selecting the right diverse talent for your organization, when you're developing them, the recruitment, the promotion decisions, all of those decisions need to be inclusive. So that's one lens. The second lens is the culture within the organization. What are the values of the organization? How do we do business? Is it through a lens of inclusion where everyone gets that opportunity to have their voice, their ideas heard and seen and celebrated fairly? And then the third prong of the inclusion model is connection. We know that a lot of the decisions are made outside of the boardroom, outside of meetings. It's through the connections, through the conversations outside of those meetings, the networking, the opportunities for sponsorship, for advocacy. They don't happen in the boardroom. Quite often, a lot of those conversations and decisions have happened prior to the boardroom or after the boardroom. So, how is the organisation set up to ensure that people can connect, people have access fairly to opportunities, to discussions, to be advocated for, or to be sponsored? So they're the three areas. And I think the business case, Rhonda, is, it's very similar to the business case around diversity. Absolutely, when you've got an organization that has a diverse workforce and they get inclusion right, they are going to have high levels of creativity, innovation. You're going to have smart minds in a room where people feel that they can absolutely collaborate, connect, share ideas. So problem solving is enhanced. And also the ability to be able to challenge one another increases. So huge benefits, and obviously the financial benefits, the profitability that can be enhanced and increased through an inclusive workplace. The research and the studies show that company revenue can increase by 3% simply by fostering more of an inclusive culture. And that is because you absolutely get more diverse ideas, you get more higher levels of collaboration, synergy, questioning and challenging the status quo, so you can do things differently. And the inclusion piece is so important because the inclusion makes people feel that they can belong and they feel safe to share their wild and wacky ideas and
Mhm.
nothing on the table.
Wow. So, Simi, you gave us so much there, and it was all brilliant. Absolutely loved it. And Roz, I was thinking of you and your type of work and your employees and your team that work with, and also thinking about a workforce that is um, dispersed, right? Or remote and that sort of thing. And so creating inclusion and still getting the benefit and the value that comes with inclusion um, may be more challenging in those organizations, but still possible. Roz, share your thoughts on that, because I know that you work constantly to make sure that you are using inclusive processes in your team.
Yeah, the biggest thing, particularly when you are an entrepreneur, I have to make sure that I go to networking events that talk about inclusion so that
Mhm.
I can then bring it back to my people so that that they are kept abreast of the latest, just like we have to go and get our CEUs every year. So I try to make it available for them to be able to go to events so that they can also to understand, okay, these are the type of people that we work with. This is what they're thinking. This is what they need. So you have to, I can't always bring the information to them. I have to allow for them to go to
Mm.
events similar to what I go to outside of the CEUs to understand that the culture has changed, to understand that the needs of the people have changed, to understand uh, why we have to do what we do to make sure that there's a balance, not only for the person receiving the care, but a balance for the person who is in charge of the care. So when you're
Mhm.
doing, particularly in my work, because it's so remote and we're kind of, we're literally our own bosses, we have to find innovative ways to make sure that our staff is still on the cutting edge with everybody else.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
it's being in this business, entrepreneur is good, but then sometimes it's bad because then you have to find other ways other than Zoom to get the training and to get the information to people. And human contact is important. With AI and all this other
Mhm.
stuff going on, yeah, it's all right to be on Zoom, but to actually sit face to face and understand someone's pain is different. And I think that's
Right.
part of the inclusion part that we have forgotten when we are um, in a position like I am. I'm done speaking. Thank you, Rhonda.
Yeah, thank you, Roz. Such an important point, because it varies, right? So if you're a leader at an organization that has a diverse, a remote, a flexible workforce, you've got to be thinking about this a little bit differently. There are a few comments I want to bring in. Yes, if we support diversity without thinking of inclusion, then we lose that diversity before it has a chance to take root and change the culture. I want to back up, because I think this is such an important point. So, if we're not going to be inclusive and invite people to bring their ideas, their full authentic self, and everything to the table, what's the point of having a diverse workforce? Right? I literally haven't really thought about it, Simi, in that way until we're just having this conversation right now. Right? If you're not going to invite their ideas, then what's the point? Why have them there? Are
Yeah,
you meeting some number or some quota? Like, what good does it do?
But you know what?
absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
Roz,
on,
go
Ross.
ahead. Roz, and then I'll come to you, Simi.
I'm sorry. If we don't do this, you have a miserable workforce.
Yeah.
The people are miserable. They don't want to. I can remember when we didn't have inclusion, I would sit in my car and like, okay, I got to get my head together. Oh, I got to go in here. And I'm serious because I feel like I was just a number. You know, you got 2 points for me. I'm Black and I'm a woman. And that's the way I felt. So when I went into work, that's the type of work I gave you. I'm Black and I'm a woman. And I didn't give you anything else. And you didn't get anything else. Because my opinion didn't matter. Only the color of my skin mattered.
Wow, Roz.
I'm done speaking.
Yeah.
All right, drop the mic on that one. We've got a lot of good discussion going here. Peter says, greetings from Melbourne. Hi, Peter. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your thoughts and comments. I'm going to go through a couple of these, Simi, and then I'm going to bring you in for your comments. A diverse and equitable and inclusive workforce means stronger, more engaged teams, better understood customers, and a place where everyone can thrive. Benefits of all of these are seen in the bottom line. Absolutely, Pat. In this case, so when I was years ago, people used to say, what you don't have can't hurt you. What you don't know won't hurt you. In this case, it does, right? It absolutely can hurt you because you are leaving dollars on the table. Good day. I am Kabina from Sierra Leone. Hey, Kabina, thanks for tuning in. Your name is not familiar to me, but I appreciate you joining us today. And then Mom said, Roz, that was really good. We've got Hannah tuning in from Minnesota. Hi, Hannah. I don't see a lot of folks from Minnesota. And LinkedIn user, OMG. I love you, Roz. So funny. And I feel it. All right, let's go. Simi, talk to us about this, because I don't know what the point is if we're bringing diverse thoughts, mindsets, backgrounds, experiences, races, religions to the team, and then we are not inviting their voices.
Look, if we think that we're going to get harmony and we're going to, get teams that collaborate and connect together when everyone is so diverse, we're actually going to get the opposite. We're going to get conflict. We're going to get challenged because everyone's coming at it with different views, different lived experiences, different perspectives. So absolutely, if an organization is committed to really be innovative, set themselves apart, represent their diverse customer base, and really build a brand that people feel that they can connect with as a consumer and as an employee, then they need to foster a culture of inclusion where we make the most of that diversity. Because otherwise, as you said, there's no point. It's actually an easier road to go down to then not have a diverse workforce if you're not prepared to actually put in mechanisms, processes, and build a culture where we really get the most out of that diversity of thought. Because otherwise it can be harmful and damaging for people who are in the minority. If they're in the minority and they are not set up to succeed in an environment, that's not fair. That's psychologically and morally unfair to put people in those positions where they are not supported to be able to thrive. And this is where I really feel and believe organizational leaders, when they are looking to really increase the diversity in their organization, they must have a clear and compelling, purposeful reason why they're doing it. And then not just have diversity, but also invest in cultivating that culture of inclusion for it to be a psychologically safe, thriving environment for everyone within the organization.
So good, Simi. Oh man, already this conversation is amazing because we're touching on things that I think we don't often talk about often, right? And I think that that's what happens when you get a cup of coffee or a glass of hot water or whatever, and you come to the coffee table and the Coffee with Rhonda show, you don't know what you're going to get and where we're going to go with it. Because I had no idea I was going to really go down this road a little bit, but it reminds me of something that happened about a year and a half ago. I got a call from someone. I can't remember if it was a LinkedIn message, but they said, hey, we have a tech organization. We're a fairly young startup, and we have like no diversity. And we want to change that. We want to hire more diverse people onto our team. And so, can you make a recommendation for some people? He sent me a job description and said, could you recommend a few people that we can speak to about this opening we have? Because we want to be mindful about this. So good for you, right? Kudos to you for that level of awareness and for wanting to do that. But I said, but I got questions. And so, can we have a conversation, right? Because I was not going to recommend anyone to this organization without understanding the point. Right? What's the real point? You just want to have some other people on your team? Or I said, how have you prepared the rest of the members of your team to embrace this diverse person? No, because people aren't diverse, but to bring in this new person into your organization. What kind of groundwork have you done to prepare the culture for this? And why are you doing it right? All of those questions, which he was a bit surprised by. He was thinking, oh, I'm just going to get a high five and a couple of names. I was like, no, because why would we ever put someone in that position that will then feel uncomfortable, devalued, fearful of speaking up, and all of that? So I think we've got to be really mindful about the work that we're doing around this. And you know what? Some organizations aren't ready for it. Let's just put that out there. I've talked to a lot of DE&I professionals who are so frustrated because they say they hire us to move the organization forward, and then all we get is stonewalled, right? We get blocked. And you know what? You have to recognize not every organization is ready for that. And I would have that difficult conversation, right? I think that's okay. You can, as an organization, you can decide that you don't want to go there, but then I'm not your person, right? If you want to move forward, then let's talk, and I'm happy to help and support. So does any of that make sense, Simi?
Absolutely, Rhonda, it really does. And I echo what you've shared there completely, because it has to go beyond a tick box exercise. Nothing will change if we are simply putting bums on seats that are diverse. Nothing is going to change. We need to foster safety. We need to foster a culture where people feel comfortable to challenge and question their bosses, to put themselves forward for opportunities, or for their bosses to recognize, well, actually, I haven't given this person an opportunity for a while. Let me bring them. Let me open my network and give them access to some of the privilege that I have. And all of this inclusion does not happen automatically. As human beings, we are hardwired. We are hardwired to one, gravitate to people who are similar to ourselves. We do that because we feel safe. It makes us feel good about ourselves. It reinforces our values. So we gravitate to people that are like ourselves. Secondly, majority of us have an overconfidence bias. That means that we all think we are more inclusive and less biased than most. So if we combine those two things together, the infinity bias and the overconfidence bias, we are stuck in what I call an inclusion delusion. We're not automatically going to be inclusive. It requires intentional, deliberate action to be inclusive.
Okay, Simi, hold on, because now I'm like, okay, what is this? Okay, I'm gonna ask you to talk about that again, and to talk about explain how we get to inclusion delusion. I love that term. I have definitely got to use that one. Inclusion delusion. And hey, Marae, thank you. Good to see you, my friend. So talk about it. Inclusion delusion. You mentioned there's a couple of biases that take us there. Talk about that again, because I want to make sure people caught that.
Yeah. So look, as humans, we naturally will gravitate towards people that are similar to ourselves. So when we're recruiting for roles, without us even realizing it, we will favor people who either look like us, sound like us, come from a similar educational background, or educational institution, we naturally will gravitate towards people that are like us because it reminds us of ourselves, it reinforces our values, and in a way, it makes us feel safe. That's how our brain is hardwired. Secondly, we all have what we call an overconfidence bias. So we like to think that we are naturally really great at a lot of things, when in reality, most of us are pretty average. So we like to think that we are more inclusive than others. We like to think we are less biased than others. And because of this kind of thought process and this bias, we think, oh, that's okay. I've got inclusion down pat. I don't need to worry about it. But that's when we slip into old behaviors, habits, our natural patterns of thinking, which essentially are not inclusive. They're only inclusive to people that are like us, not to people that are different. And going back to Ros's point when we mentioned about, hybrid working and working with teams that are remote from us, as leaders and managers, we also then have a distance bias. So a distance bias is that we prioritize, we keep people who are directly in front of us top of mind for any opportunities, for promotions, to acknowledge their performance. So again, as a leader and manager, that bias plays into the inclusion delusion.
Mm.
So if we're wanting to break free from this term that I call inclusion delusion, we need to wake up. We need to become so much more intentional by firstly asking ourselves, are we truly inclusive? Or are we thinking that we are more inclusive than we actually are? Are we really trying to get the best out of others and include them and help them thrive? Or are we just trying to do that with the people that we know and we associate with regularly? These are the questions that we need to keep asking ourselves to break free from this inclusion delusion.
Mm.
And there's tools and strategies that we work with senior leadership teams to really specifically help them to step out of the inclusion delusion and to lead more inclusively on a day-to-day basis.
Oh my gosh, that name is I just absolutely love it. And so, um, Murray, have you worked with people who have an inclusion delusion?
Oh my God, I like this term. Yes, of course. Of course. I mean, starting with myself, inclusion delusion. It's now I realize that I actually have it as well. When I was listening, I was like, oh Lord, what's happening? She's just, she's just making me aware of all the bias that I still have, and this inclusion delusion is just amazing. And we don't really in everything that we do, we don't really realize, like she said, that we actually trying to bring around us people who will look like us, or who think like us, or people that we think have the same character or same view. And it's just when you start to sit down and realize, and analyze the people that you have around you, that you're like, oh, okay, there are, a lot of similarity. There's, something that connect you to the person, and it's not totally innocent. So yes, the question is yes.
Wow, I love that. So, a couple of comments I'm going to bring in. I love this, Pat. Pat shared this quote from Pat Waldor's: "When we listen and celebrate what is both common and different, we become wiser, more inclusive, and better organization." That is a fantastic quote. And then we have someone who said, "OMG, I love it, inclusion delusion." So, everyone now, Simeon's going to be walking around going, "Well, you got inclusion delusion." That's cloning and recruitment. Do and point, Simi, and then Mom said, "Welcome, Marae," and then Christopher said, "My experience is that unfortunately there is a profusion of inclusion delusion." Oh my goodness. So I love that. And I think it's really important. So, one of the things that I'm just going to leave us with thinking about as we go to a quick break is we often use the term hiring for fit. And
Mm-hmm.
it worries me a little bit because I want to know, what does that mean, right? When you are hiring for fit, it is very easy to recreate yourself and what is already existing in your organization because, quote, that's who fits here. So, where is the opportunity to bring in other voices, experiences, so from that diverse perspective, and then move towards inclusion if we are only hiring for fit? So, I get that you have maybe a positive culture and you want to hire people for teamwork, but I'm not sure that that's what that always means. So, I'll just leave that there for a minute. We're going to go to break and then we're going to come back and continue our conversation. I can't believe time is really flying by. So, we'll come back right after the Greatness Minute.
Hello, everyone. This is Mariah, the Greatness Engineer, with you today. Welcome to the Greatness Minute. Today, I want to talk about making the time for your greatness. It is important that you make greatness a priority. And when I'm talking about priority, I want you to attach a time element to your greatness. Have milestone checkpoints to check on the way where you are. You can't afford to be time poor when you want to attain greatness. You have to make sure that you are rich in your time. And being rich in your time means that you have to manage your time properly, have clear objective and a clear mission, but a timetable and a time schedule that will help you to journey through your greatness. So mind your time and make your greatness a priority, because the way you manage your time tell the world who you are. So mind your time. That's all I have for today. See you next week.
I love that. No, nobody wants to be time poor, right? And we're so, this is, it comes to mind when we're all so busy, right? Busy, 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 moving around, that we don't really have the time that we need to enjoy other aspects and other parts of our lives. So, all right. Thank you so much, Marae, for the Greatness Minute. Let's keep our conversation going around inclusion. And what I want to talk about, okay, we've got a good comment here. I have a DEI journal, a space to express my feelings, challenge my beliefs, and admit that I have biases too. I look at how I look at the world and people differently and deliberately take action to lessen my own biases. Okay, if there's anyone out there listening in the sound of our voices that does not have bias, please say I don't in the chat. And I hope I don't see one I don't come in, just just to give you a heads up, because we all have biases. It's about our willingness to see them and acknowledge that they're there, and then it's about what we decide to do with it, so that our biases, I say we'll never get rid of bias. And Simi, you can share your thoughts on it. Well, we're human beings. We'll never get rid of biases. What we can work really hard on is decreasing the negative impact that our bias has on other people. Is that how you see that, Simi?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, our biases, they're not all bad. They serve us well in certain ways because biases help us take mental shortcuts, can help us do things quicker, can help us make certain simple decisions. But when we are making people decisions, when we are making these really significant people decisions in terms of recruitment, attraction, promotions, how we show up as a leader when we are responsible for a team that we're managing. That's when we really need to be very much aware of the impact of those biases. You're right, we all have biases. I've been doing this work for 2 decades now, and I absolutely still have bias. And, I slip up at times. I'm human, just like each and every one of us. And that's okay. It's recognizing the impact of those biases, and it's looking to put in place measures. Now, our biases will occur more when we are tired, when we are overloaded and we're multitasking, when we are rushed to make a decision, when we feel we don't have that time to seek other people's opinions. This is very easily conditions when our biases will kick in. So it's really important that when you have important, significant decisions to make as leaders, as a leadership team, that measures are taken to reduce individual and collective bias.
That's really interesting, Simi. So the fact that our biases are impacted. So I've been doing a lot of work talking with leaders about the importance of well-being. We've talked a lot about the importance of sleep and how it can affect your decision-making ability, your cognitive functions, your executive functions, all of that. And so that element is one that's really important for us to think about. We might be unaware of that because we're tired. We're rushing to this judgment, right? And we're leaving people out of the conversation. Are there places, Simi, where we should really, as leaders, press the pause button? One of the things that I often hear from when I have the opportunity to talk directly to employees is they changed X or they did X without any feedback from us. We are the ones out here doing the work. And yet they make this decision and we think it's awful, right? And so that is one of the places where I think leaders should pause. But do you, I don't know if that is really a thing, right? Maybe they should pause on all decisions, but I feel like there are certain areas and decisions where we really need to be mindful, take a little bit more time, not rush into things, and really open up the world of feedback and listening before we make our decisions.
Yeah, I would agree. I think whenever there's a significant decision or a change that needs to be rolled out in the organization, we need to pause. We need to firstly ask, what is the why? What is the purpose? And then secondly, how do we do this through a lens of inclusivity?
Mm-hmm.
And when we apply that lens of inclusivity, a big part of that is engaging, consulting, and really hearing what people are feeling and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're so much in a rush to make things happen. That's why many people feel that they haven't been heard, that their views haven't been taken into account. And this is where pausing and taking that opportunity to listen very openly and deeply to what your staff are feeling, what their experience is, what their thoughts are, absolutely opens up it's like another mirror is being held up to you of this really valuable information that if you had not pressed a pause button and opened your mind and your ears to what people are thinking and feeling, you wouldn't have this extra layer of information.
Yeah.
It's really important to create that environment. And as you said, tiredness leads to, quick rush decisions and poor judgment. So if you notice your workforce are fatigued, that's disengaged, they're less likely to be on board with new initiatives or ways that you're trying to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to look at baselining energy and increasing that energy and getting that buy-in, helping them feel heard and seen, and then being able to engage them in a change process.
Yeah, so important. Oh, wow. There's a lot here. that we could unpack. And this is one of the reasons I absolutely love this topic, because there's 100 different places that we can go with it. But our goal is to really give a high level of information so that people can take away whatever they feel like that could help them or benefit them or value them. So Pat said, words matter. How important is a common language in helping us communicate as leaders more effectively? And so, Simi, I'll let you talk about that. I'll come to you, Marae, and get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, great point that's been shared there. Words do matter. The language that we use really matters. There's certain words that we use that spark different feelings and emotions in others. And it's being really mindful of the language. It's being really mindful that we're inclusive in the language that we use. So simple things, with colleagues, because it's not just about leaders and managers role modeling inclusion. It's also about colleagues and how they interact with their peers. Because majority of our time is spent with our peers as opposed to directly with your direct manager.
Mm-hmm.
So that the language that our peers use with us, in terms of questioning about relationships or your weekend, the language that we can use, we can be really inclusive. Rather than using the word husband or wife, use the word partner. Just simple things that we can be aware of in terms of our language, and asking people how they like to be addressed. Just common courtesy. And, sometimes I think if we look at inclusion at its very basics, it really comes down to how courteous we are to others and how respectful we are. Now, everyone is different in terms of their interpretation of the level of courteousness or respectfulness that they feel they need or want. But if we have that lens, if we take that lens when we interact with others, we're definitely halfway there to leading and interacting inclusively.
I love that. So good, Simi. Dr. Desi joined us. Hello there. Great to see you. She says, right. And she says, good morning, ladies. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is an important conversation. Roz, I see your hand. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so far as the inclusion part, when making decisions, I have to make sure that each employee has that power to make the decision when I'm not around.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to have that power, because the decision that they make is life or death.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to empower them. I have to, when they call me, what did you do? How did you handle it? And I'll support you. So they know that I'll support them.
Mm-hmm.
So when they have that support, they can make better decisions. I'm done speaking.
It reminds me of empowering your employees to the level that you are not afraid, right? As a leader, you don't fear what they're going to do. And this goes back to, I think, it's one of the major hotel chains. And I can't remember, it might be the Ritz-Carlton, that gives their employees the decision-making authority to do what they need to do to make the customer happy in the moment. Figure out what needs to be done for them, and you make the decision on what needs to be to happen. That's hugely empowering for people, right? So great point, Roz. Thank you. Marae, you want to add to this conversation?
Yeah, just wanted to add on the part of empowering, as a leader, empowering people that you work with. I've seen so far. I used to work for, a leader who was actually empowering us by each year, instead of imposing the KPI of the team to us, just ask us to actually make those KPIs and really go through the process. And we were empowered because we realized that we were the one who actually put that together, and we were really eager to actually deliver, instead of having them impose on us. And I thought that it was a very powerful way of empowering people that you actually lead, instead of, imposing, a certain point of view and imposing a certain agenda. Have to just listen to them and see what's important to them and how they see, success, and how they see the way to bring value to the organization. So that's really resonate when I was, listening to Simi when she was talking about it.
Yeah, thank you for that, because that level of empowerment is impactful, right? And what
Mm-hmm,
happened, like you said, Marae, you all got on
mm-hmm,
board because you're like, hey, we came up
mm-hmm,
with this, we made the decision, you're more invested. Really great point. So, a couple of things. I just decided just now that next season we are going to do a show on listening, one
mm-hmm,
whole show on listening, because I think it's one of the areas that gets missed, and it ties to pretty much everything in terms of your organization and how your people feel, right? So we're definitely going to do that next season. One of the things I want to do now is I want to just take a little bit of a pause. I want to ask everyone, if you have not shared the video already, please share it with your network. This is an important conversation, and others could benefit from it as well. So like the video and share it with your network. And then we also have Disrael joining from Equatorial New Guinea, West Africa. Thank you so much for joining. Great to see you here. All right, so let's do a quick break, and we're going to do our top two. So, all right, we like to do these top two questions where we ask everybody their top two. And so our top two question today is, if you could participate in the Olympics and choose any sport that you want to participate in, which two sports would you choose? Which two sports, if you could participate in any sports and be an Olympian, what two sports would you choose? We'll come back and get your responses. If you're out there listening in the audience, please type your top two sports in the chat, and we'll come back right after this. All right, the top two sports. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I would do curling. I was just telling my client, we were trying to figure out. And the other one is when the horses jump over the fences and stuff. That
Equestrian?
equestrian, yeah, that part. Jumping over that part.
Oh, fun. Okay, very cool. Okay, all right. Talk about biases. I'm gonna be just transparent. It's hard for me to believe that that's a sport, but okay. I'm just saying. Just saying.
I like it like
Okay, that might not have been very inclusive of me. But, anyway, okay. Marae, what are your top two?
My top two are, the 100-meter, which is, athleticism, and also I like swimming. When they are the Olympic, they swim. I don't swim, but I like watching. So if I could swim and do the Olympic, that's the sport that I would do.
Oh, very cool. All right, awesome. Simi, what about you?
What an incredible question. I would love to be a graceful skater. Skating, on the ice, and yeah, I'd love to do that. Without falling over and breaking my leg. And I think the next one would be the discus. So throwing the discus really far.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When I was in high school, I actually used to do a shot put,
Oh, yeah.
which was just really, really fun. Okay, so
not a sport. That's not a sport.
That's not a sport.
Throwing a ball. What is that?
Fine, Roz. I think my top two, if I could be an Olympian, the first one would be a high jumper. Right. I've always thought, how do they use those darn poles to get all the way up over that? I mean, that's just incredible skill to me. And the second one is gymnastics. Like, what a powerful sport. But I'm like you, Simi. I'd probably break all kind of things, and it just wouldn't end very well. So those would be my top two. I don't see any top two comments. from the audience. So we'll move on, but I do see a couple of other comments. And Pat says, I would love a topic on gender diversity. Let me jot that down, Pat, for next season. In fact, I will take suggestions right now. We only have one more episode left in this season. Next week is our 100th episode. Please tune in for next week. It should be a good one. And but I will write that down for next season, Pat. So if you have other ideas of things that you'd like to see us discuss here on the Coffee with Rhonda show for next season, let me know. And I'm happy to entertain those as well and find great experts for us. And then Dr. Desi said, absolutely. Okay. I can't believe it's almost the end of the show, ladies. So we better do a couple of things, right? We need to hold up our cups. And then I want to wrap up by talking about what we want people to take away in terms of actions, right? What can people do? We know what inclusion is. We've talked about how important it is. What do we want people to do in terms of moving this forward in their organization? And obviously that will vary from person to person. So first things first, let's hold up our cups and take our coffee shot. I got to show my Columbia. Great. Got it. All right. And so when we come back, if you have an action you'd like to share, awesome, as a takeaway. If not, you can just share as we normally do, as we share what we put in your cup today during this discussion and this conversation. So we will do that after we come back, and we'll start our wrap up. So this segment, again, is about what are you taking away from the conversation? If you're out there in the audience listening, I'd love to know what you're taking away from the conversation as well. If this was helpful, any other thoughts that you'd like to contribute as well. So we'll start with our co-host, and then Simi will end and come to you for your thoughts and your takeaways. And as you do that, I also want to be sure that you share how people can connect with you and learn more about the work that you're doing in the world. So Marae, let's start with you in terms of what we put in your cup today.
So in my cup today is definitely the inclusion delusion. So didn't really realize, to what extent this delusion was, present, not only, in my own environment, but in the world, and really, understanding that we have to pause, ask the right question, and empower, people that we lead and communicate with. And like Pat was saying, words matter, really, pay attention to how the word that we use and the impact that it creates, around us. So really powerful.
Yeah, thank you, Marae. To that point around the words matter, I spent the better part of the last decade working with organizations to create, transform their organizational cultures through language.
Mhm.
Right? We
Mhm.
installed a language throughout the organization that they would
Mhm.
use to be a more caring, compassionate organization. So words definitely
Mhm.
do matter. Roz, what about you? What's in your cup, and what are you taking away?
I guess as I was listening, I was thinking about how have we devalued people by not doing DEI?
Mm,
How much value have we lost? I'm not talking about monetary value. I'm talking about self-worth.
hmm
What have we lost?
Yeah.
So that was my biggest concern, and then also too knowing that um, biases will never go away.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Roz. Wonderful. All right. So, Simi, let's wrap up. Share your thoughts, share any actions you think that people can take, even small ones, to get a start, to get headed in the right direction around this. And then also share how people can contact you or learn about what you do in the world.
Thank you, Rhonda. My cup is so full from this wonderful, wonderful discussion. So thank you, all three of you. I think that there's a really big opportunity here for us to get inclusion right. And I've seen it working with so many organizations now in the UK, here in Australia, when we get inclusion right, employee morale, innovation, creativity, decision making, and even financial profitability all increases, as well as people's well-being. We spend more than 70% of our waking day either at work or thinking about work. We all have a responsibility to get inclusion right. So the one thing I would really encourage all of you to do is to get into that habit of just stopping, pausing, and questioning yourself and asking yourself, am I truly being inclusive here? Or am I stuck in an inclusion delusion? And just by asking yourself that question, you've created an opportunity for yourself to choose how you then next respond and interact. And that will make a huge difference to the other person on the receiving end. So Rhonda, thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful show. You're almost welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, also on all social media channels as well. You'll find me there under Simi Rayot and also Wellbeing Face. And if there's any way that I can support your organization's efforts around dialing and fostering inclusive cultures within your organization, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to advise and share more tips and strategies as well. So thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Morel and Roz.
Thank you all. It's just been a fantastic conversation. And I think one of the things that I want to wrap up with is I had a last drop, which I do every show, prepared, but I'm going to deviate from that. And I'm not even going to show it because what's really in my heart and mind is inclusion is central to what organizations say they want. They want employees to operate at peak performance. They want them to be creative. They want them to feel like they belong. Isn't it impossible to do that when you don't feel like your voice is valued or like you're included? So inclusion is central to everything organizations say they want, including the profitability on the bottom line. So as you say, Simi, getting this right is a business imperative. And that will be my last thought for today. So we have a final comment here. Great conversation, said Pat. And Pat also said it's interesting that an interesting observation that all of us chose individual sports and not team sports. Come on, Pat, we don't get people that much. Dr. Desi said track and field and endurance are the two that she would choose. So thank you all so much. My cup is absolutely full from this wonderful, amazing conversation. I wasn't quite sure. I thought it was going to go in a different direction. We deviated, but that's the beautiful part about the Coffee with Wanda show is that we can do that. So absolutely love it. Simi, thank you so much for gracing us today, joining the coffee table and sharing your brilliance with us. To my co-hosts, we won't have a debrief today, so we'll let everybody get on with their day. But for all of the rest of you, I fully expect to see you all back here next week for a 90-minute edition of the 100th episode of the Coffee with Rhonda show. And with that, we will see you all next week. Take good care, everybody.
Thank you all.